Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday night. Good to see ya in the chat. Today's an AMA, so any burning questions as we settle in, let me know. We'll wait for everyone to join in and get to talking. I'd love to see y'all all in the chat once we get set up. Say hi. Especially for those of you that have been coming to my lives. It's great to see familiar names. Hello, hello. Maybe where you guys are at in your MCAT process. Do we have any January test takers here? Are we 1 month out, few days out, few months out? And any pressing burning questions, feel free to add them in. We'll be doing a lot of Q&A the whole time, but anything that's pressing, feel free to pop in the chat. All right, got a May tester, you got time, which is great. Maybe starting off 2026 strong with some MCAT prep. Amazing. Anyone else in terms of April test taking? Very nice to know. Loving it. January, all right. I knew we were gonna get a few that were ready for this. Awesome, Jan test taker, great. We're almost there, right? We're in the finish lines, which is really exciting. So we'll get a chance to talk about all this. I know it's the test cycle officially starts this weekend, which is wild. Always comes a little too fast in my books, but for those that are kind of coming up on their test day, if you have anything that you are stressing about, that you are worried about, how do we fix this problem? How do we get good at this on test day? Throw it in the chat, because today is all about your Q&A. I do have a couple practice problems prepared just to talk through some mental shortcuts that I have used with students, but I also just want to help you guys with your prep. So wherever you are at with your current prep, with other questions you have, throw them in the chat right now. We can dive right in as we're waiting for everyone to join us on this Tuesday evening. So especially my Jan test taker crew, if there's anything that you've been struggling with, let me know. But April, May, you guys too. What do we want to work on today? I am dusting off my preparing for test day slides and things like that. So we are coming up on those dates. I will know after this weekend. We haven't had the test dates yet, and I don't have any inside person in the exam writers category, unfortunately. I wish I did. It would be cool. I'm sure they can't tell me anything. I'm sure they get very firm NDAs. If they're making you guys do a vein scan, I'm sure the test makers have strong NDAs. But we will know after this weekend. I have some predictions that I'm very curious if they will become true predictions. And always, we grain of salt the responses we get until we get scores back. But at the same time, it's always nice to kind of hear general impressions. Yeah. Like how to know which equations to use. I could even broaden that out in terms of what equations, how to know which equations to use in general. Yeah, absolutely. We can chat about that. The short answer for that is the gas laws are all just derivatives of the ideal gas law. So ideal gas law, PV equals nRT. Boyle's law, for example, is PV equals nRT just with temperature held constant. So everything on the right side of the equation is held constant. So you usually know which gas law equation to use by what's held constant. If temperature is held constant, use Boyle's law. If pressure is held constant, use Charles' law. If nothing is held constant except for moles, or nothing is held constant except for the ideal gas constant, use the full ideal gas law. So all of it's about what are we not changing versus what are we are. There's lots of words for that. So isothermal, meaning no changing temperature. Isovolumetric, no change in volume. So it may be good to create a little chart or a little mental model on the gas law, what's held constant, and the terms that are used commonly. So if they tell you we have an isobaric system, okay, pressure is being held constant there. So I'm probably using Charles's law. So I hope that helps. A lot of times on gas laws, it's either conceptual or they're going to make you do a lot of unit conversion because there's degrees Celsius to Kelvin, there's millimoles to moles. So it's okay, I just got to do some plug and chug. Yeah. Hello, good to see you guys. Great. Test next week, and biggest problem is running out of stamina. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes, I have so many things on stamina. I actually was just teaching a workshop at the NIH about stamina on test day today. So I have lots of thoughts. They just came up. Short answer, especially, I don't know, Cheyenne, if you've put in, oh, you're testing next week. Okay, so we don't got time to train too much. Hopefully we've done our practice exams. The main thing is make sure you're sleeping a lot, because we want to go into the start of test day full tank of gas. The best thing you can do, honestly, the week before is get really good quality rest so that you're as attentive as possible. Number 2, make sure you're eating every single break and that you eat a good breakfast. You're probably not going to be hungry. Our body's going to be in fight or flight as opposed to rest and digest, but your brain runs on glucose primarily, and blood glucose dips at about an hour and a half. So you need to eat, and you need to drink some water. That can be like a Gatorade or something that's got some electrolytes in it so that you're not getting too much water and having to go to the bathroom. But definitely please eat. It doesn't have to be much, like 200 to 400 calories is fine as long as you're eating every break. And then the third thing for stamina is to make sure you know the plan. In other words, like know exactly how you're approaching each passage, each exam. So I know that in cars, I tend to struggle with philosophy passages, so I'm going to save them for last, and I'm just going to go with the main idea. Like have all of those decisions. You can spend a week just kind of going through your strategies and what's worked for you and what hasn't. Decide in advance how you're going to approach each exam section so that you don't have to make that decision on test day. A lot of fatigue comes from decision fatigue, like cognitive load fatigue. The more decisions you can make ahead of time about how you're approaching each part of the exam, how long you're spending, how you're managing your breaks, the better your energy will be to actually focus on the questions and those 230 decisions. Last thing is you can take breaks. All right. In my real exam, every third passage, I would close my eyes for 10 seconds and just take a deep breath. Right? Just stretch out 10 seconds. It's worth it. And it resets your brain. The second thing I did is by the time I got to Psych Soc, my brain was dead. And so every single passage, I would start by being like, okay, Amanda, you know science, you know to look in the passage, focus in, do your strategies, right? And I had to tell myself what to do every step of the way because I was so tired. And I took little breaks in between. I closed my eyes and took some deep breaths so I could focus when I was in the section. So feel free to do that. And then the last thing is to just acknowledge that you're supposed to be tired, right? This is not the type of exam that you should feel chipper and upbeat after this exam. You should feel dead by the end of this. It's like an Ironman, right? You're gonna feel super tired, but as long as you've done good quality strategy, that fatigue shouldn't affect your performance, as long as you commit to doing those strategies. So I hope that's helpful. I know that's a lot in your last week. All right, keep giving me questions, guys. For those that are just joining, we're talking about Q&A for strategies, for things. Keep giving it to me. Oh, great to see you. Advice on timing in Chem Phys section. Absolutely. Shine, do you mind putting in what your timing issue is? Are you spending too much time on passages? Getting stuck on math questions? Just spending too long on certain types of questions? Where are we running out of time? Or where are we spending too much time, which results in running out of time? Because that's always the question. For timing issues, guys, timing is a symptom. It's kind of like a fever. A fever can be the cause of a fever can have a lot of different causes, right? It can be the flu. It can be that you were in a hot tub. So we need to know what was the cause of that timing issue before we can fix it. So put that in there and then I'll give you more details. Thoughts on note-taking during cars? Yeah, I do. I annotate. I'll tell you, I annotate every single passage. But that's a personal thing because annotation for me helps keep my focus and keeps me organized. If I read something without taking notes, even like a textbook, I don't retain it. And so the note-taking is not for me to reuse necessarily. It's to force me to focus. A shorthand is really helpful for note-taking. You don't have to write out full sentences. No one's grading your note-taking. So just finding a system that does work for a lot of students, even if it's just the main idea and the author's opinion. So I was just teaching a passage in UWorld that was about Wagner, right? And how cool Wagner was. And the whole passage was all these things about Wagner and how cool he was in the opera. So all we really need to write down is like, author thinks Wagner is awesome. Cool, like, and very innovative and different than everybody else. And that got us most of the questions. So just having like a couple key ideas can orient you to the passage. You don't have to take notes on like every single detail, I guess would be my caveat. Great questions, guys. I'm gonna rock and roll through all of them, I promise. No, don't brain dump. I know this is controversial. I know, I've been in the Reddits enough to know that brain dumping is a controversial topic. Here's the thing. I don't recommend brain dumping for 3 reasons. I'm going to give you all 3, so maybe I can convince you. You can do it if you want, all right? I'm not your boss. I'm not MCAT God. You can do whatever you'd like. But the reason I don't recommend brain dumping, the number 1 reason, is that research has shown that that does not work for a critical reasoning-based volume exam, which is what this exam is. Brain dumping really works for short exams of less than 2 hours where you know exactly what's going to be tested. So brain dumping works really great for like your undergraduate physics class where you know exactly that they're going to test you on these equations. But on the MCAT, we don't know what they're going to test you on, to be honest. Like, we can make guesses, but I cannot guarantee for you that they're going to test you on delta G. So you writing out the delta G equation may not even be helpful because it may not even be on there. So that's number 1. So they've just shown in research that for these types of exams, mind dumping does not help. The second reason is mind dumping is really tiring, and it's already a 7.5-hour exam. I don't want you to tire yourself out trying to dump your whole memory onto a piece of paper. The third reason is a lot of proctors are trained on different exams where you are not allowed to mind dump. And so I've heard this happen over and over where people have started to like write frantically as soon as they sit down and the proctor takes their noteboard away and is like, no, you can't do that. You are technically in the right. You are allowed to mind dump. But I don't want you getting in an argument with the proctor right before ChemPhys. Like, that is not what I want you spending your energy on. I want you focusing on what you need to do. It doesn't really help anyway. It's fine to take a couple notes. Like what I did on my test is I wrote down my pKa-pH rule in my Henderson-Hasselbalch video. I wrote down the basic and acidic amino acids. I wrote down smile across the top and breathe across the bottom. And then I wrote my reordering chart that's in my reordering video on YouTube. And I did that over the course of the 10-minute tutorial. I took my time, didn't look like I was mind dumping. So I don't recommend it. You can do it. You could get, risk the proctor's wrath or whatever. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think it necessarily helps people's scores. Cool. Psych-soc questions. Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with the vocabulary, this one's a fun one. They do this on purpose, I think. So they will give you a question where 3 of the words you have seen before, they're probably common, and 1 word you have never seen in your life. You're like, what is that word? So here's the rule. If you know the other 3, and you know that the other 3 are wrong for that answer, pick the answer you don't know. But if you know the other 3, and you know that A is correct, you're like, I'm pretty sure A is right, but I have no idea what D is, go with A. Go with what you know to be true. My theory is that they're trying to test you on your ability to ignore noise, right? So it's either like, A, B, and C are definitely wrong. I have no idea what D is, but it's got to be the only answer that's correct. Or I'm totally confused by D, but A, I know, and I know it should be correct. So that's my theory. If you're down to 50-50 and you have no idea what 2 of the words are, guess and move on. Don't spend extra energy on it. Yeah, great questions here, guys. I'm going through as I go, I promise. I have not played with the both highlight colors, to be honest, because that's a new thing. If you have a fast system and it works for you and it doesn't take extra time, that's fine. I've always just used the yellow highlight personally. I think the blue is there just in case you want to change the colors on the background and make that easier. Personally, I've seen some strategies out there, but I think it may be a lot to keep in my brain of like, oh, I got to do people for blue and like concepts for yellow. Like, I just feel like I would spend so much time doing that. I would not pay attention to the passage. But if it works for you and it's getting you more points, absolutely do it. Personally, for me, I just pick the color I like better and stick with that. Or change it up just to be like, okay, I'm in cars, so now I'm going to do blue. Great questions. These are so many good questions. Cars timing, yeah, is your, basically, you don't need to get a perfect answer, right? The game is to get the right answer. not to be able to understand each and every answer choice. So I think it's a mindset thing. If you're telling me that you're in perfectionist mode, we got to let that go. Nothing about the MCAT is perfectionist oriented. It's more about what is the simplest and cleanest and least effortful way I can get to the right answer. So try to change your mindset. What's the fastest way I could find the right answer? What is the least amount of work I could do? Kind of like think almost lazy mindset. Like what is the least amount of effort I can put into this question to get the right answer and move on with my life? Because that's really what it's about. Same thing with cars, reading. If you're used to reading for deep comprehension, it's hard to move on and be like, I don't need to know these details. But in reality, we don't need to know those details, right? We just need enough information to answer 4 to 7 questions and then move on with our life. So really work on your mindset. I would say if you're finding yourself being perfectionist, you can always be perfectionist on your own time after you're done with the MCAT, right? But in the moment, really get into, okay, I think B is correct because A, C, and D all have weird extreme answers or they're out of scope. I may not fully understand why B is correct, but I'm picking it. It's the only good answer. Let's move on, right? That's the goal. That's the game. Yeah. Math related, practice. Practice your math skills, please. I have a lot of math videos in my YouTube channel. So please practice your math skills so that the calculation parts aren't slowing you down. I will tell you though, you don't need to do the math all the way out. This is a multiple choice test. So as soon as you get close to the answer where you're like, oh, A and D are totally out, right? They're way too small and way too big. Eliminate those. Get into the answer as quick as possible. You're not going to get any bonus credit for doing your math all the way out. So as soon as you have an answer, what I'm doing is every step of my math, I'm checking the answer choices and seeing if there's only one obvious answer left. So maybe I'm multiplying 10 times 5. It's going to be a 50, right? And maybe there's only one answer choice with a 50. And maybe it's like 0.05 and I would have to do decimals and all that stuff. But if there's only one answer with a 5, I'm picking that answer and I'm moving on, right? We just did that in class in winter cohort yesterday. We were doing V equals IR, Ohm's law. And there was complicated stuff, but really it was just 12 divided by 2, which was 6. It was 6,000, but there was only one answer with a 6 in it. So we picked that answer, we move right along. So again, kind of same thing as with the cars question. It's not about perfection. It's not about 100% correct. It's enough correct to be able to move on to the next thing. And that is what the MCAT's trying to teach you. It's saying, hey, let's be efficient, let's be effective, let's triage, and let's only spend the time we need to here because we got a lot to do, right? Just like in medicine, we always have too much to do. Awesome, guys. Yeah, if you get down to 2 and you keep picking the wrong one, first off, it's 50-50 shot, so you're probably getting it right 50% of the time, but we want to do better than 50%. Most of the time, students who get down to 50-50, you're getting down to 2 good answers. The MCAT's a real big fan of one answer being close, but the other answer just being better. So just be careful that you're not being biased when you're looking at those 2 remaining answers. What I do with students is once you eliminate two, go back to the drawing board, reread the question stem, and then look at your remaining 2 answers and be like, which one matches better? Not which one I like better, not which one is better worded, but which one matches better to what I'm looking for. That can help with a lot of those like, oh, well, both are true statements. There's a lot of questions where they'll give you 2 true statements, but only one is answering the question being asked, right? Maybe it's about red blood cells and them not having a nucleus. And one of the answers is about them being smaller than the other cell types. That's true. Red blood cells are smaller than the other cell types, but that doesn't explain why they don't have a nucleus, right? So checking in and just being like, just because it's true doesn't make it right. Is this answering the question? And usually there are 2 good answers, but one's just slightly better. So I hope that helps, and practice with that and be like, okay, start from scratch. I have 2 answers. Which one is better answering the question being asked? All right, I'm reading the questions here. So yeah, I would, for the question that's saying, hey, I'm looking to start in May and I was a retaker, practice exam. Take a practice exam, go through my practice exam mini course. It's free on my website. It will take you through how to review it and how to identify your challenge areas. But you need to see what you've recalled from your retake or from your previous attempt and what you haven't recalled. I don't want you to start from scratch chapter 1 with content review because there's probably a lot that you do remember well enough to get to practice questions. So take a practice exam, see where the gaps are, fill in those gaps. The one thing I will say for retakers, whatever was the most scary thing that you never really locked down on your previous attempt, start there because we want to get that scary hard thing off of your brain and into a mastery area. But other than that, use your practice exam to make decisions about what you should focus on versus like just starting from scratch. Good question. Great. Resources for math problems. Yeah, again, I have videos. Khan Academy has a relatively decent set. I also really like chemquiz.net, all right? It's just a basic website that does scientific notation practice, unit conversion and things like that for like high school chemistry. So I use that with a lot of students. You can create these quizzes. It's just chemquiz.net. But honestly, anytime you see a math question on the MCAT, maybe take a screenshot of it and then have like a folder of all the math questions and just do them like 6-8 times until it becomes really natural setting up the math. Great. Good questions here. And do you recommend to read the questions before the passage? No. No, again, that's another area of research I personally did with students because that was a strategy. When I used to teach the SAT and the GRE, that was absolutely a strategy I taught. I used to teach, do the questions first and then, or read the questions first and then read the passage and then answer. And then I was doing that with my MCAT students and it was not working. We were getting more wrong and we were taking more time. So I actually took a look at that. For most students, it makes more sense to at least read the passage for at least 1.5 minutes, at least get the lay of the land. And the reason why is unlike the SAT and GRE, MCAT questions are comprehensive, right? They're really tying in the whole part of the passage, the whole idea of the research study. And so you need to have a grasp of the general concept in order to answer the questions, not vocabulary and details like they do for the GRE and SAT. So I don't recommend it just because I haven't seen it work for most students. You could be the exception, but I would check your data. Do you actually improve accuracy by reading the questions first? Or does it just take more time? Because that's what I've seen. It just takes more time and it's about the same accuracy. So I don't think it's worth it, personally, for most students. Again, take everything with a grain of salt, right? Yes, I did take the MCAT. I sat for the real MCAT for the last time in 2017. I'm not allowed to take it again because I now do this for a living since then. And they have very explicit rules on it. For my retakers, you know, they make you sign a thing that says, I am taking this exam for the purpose of going to medical school. And I have no intention of going to medical school. So I haven't taken the real one, but I have taken the most recent exams that have been released from the AAMC ever since then. I took it twice myself. I took it in 2016 and then in 2017. After studying my first one, I studied for about 3 months and I was like pretty good, but I knew I could do a lot better. And then I studied for almost a year for my retake. I was working over full time, so I was only studying like 5 hours a week. So it took me almost 11 months before I saw the scores I wanted to see on my retake. So yep, I did that myself back when I thought I was going to medical school, realized I wanted to teach instead. And now I'm here teaching you guys. I've been doing this officially since 2019, but like kind of under the radar in 2018. So yeah, it's been a long time now. It's kind of wild to think, 8 years. But yes, I definitely have taken it and it's my full-time job. I probably in the AAMC materials every single day. And I probably have all the practice exams memorized at this point. It's a little sad. That's what I spend my time doing, but it's enjoyable and I love it for you guys. Great questions. Yeah, the reordering chart for the brain dump is in my YouTube video on timing on the MCAT, like the secret weapon in timing, I think it's called. We try to be fun about it. Also in my course, we do teach it in the first week of the class, so class 2 during CARS. But there's a YouTube video on there, which is my personal reordering strategy. It's not one you have to use, but it works for a lot of my students. Yeah. First full length, too much time on math questions. Great, yeah. Yeah, so it's a balance, right? Like, where are we spending time and not getting the question right, right? So if we're spending too much time on passages, but we are getting the questions right, maybe it's worth sacrificing those math questions. But if you know you could get the math questions right, maybe we need to be more efficient with passages. So remember, timing on the MCAT is all about how do I give myself time to get my guaranteed points. It's not about getting to every single question, because I hate to break it to you, there are questions you are going to get wrong on this exam. Full stop. Sorry, it's just the way it is. So our game is how do we spend the least amount of time on questions we're probably going to get wrong anyway, and spend more time on questions we can get right. So if you know you don't know something, and you're 100% sure there's no way you can get that question right, don't spend time on it. Guess and move on. But if you're like, I could spend time on this, but there are 4 other questions I know I could also get right, give it its minute, minute and a half, and then move right along. For me, I checked my timing. It's in the reordering strategy video, but I checked my timing every other passage. So in the sciences, you want to be 16 minutes for 2 passages. So I knew that if I took 20 minutes, I was a little behind, and it allowed me to catch up without falling so far behind that I ran out of time on questions. So it's also helpful to have timestamps of knowing where you should be at the given point in the exam. So that way, 2 passages in, I know I'm about 4 or 5 minutes behind. I don't need to panic, but I do need to pick up the pace so that I'm not totally running out of time at the end of the exam. And usually, just so you know, what I usually do is if the passages have math questions as associated with the passage, I would do the non-math questions first and then come back and do the math questions in that same passage before moving on. Because it's also hard to understand the passage, find the right information. Give yourself a minute and a half, guess and move on those math questions. But part of that is going to be practicing your speed of your calculations and minimizing calculations as much as possible by reasoning. Cool? Awesome, guys. Really good questions here. Waitlists move all the time. I would say your odds are really good of getting your spot if you're on the wait list. It has been crazy this year. Everyone's on wait lists more so than usual, but we've seen a ton of movement already for the January dates. So I'm not super worried. If you get to 2 months out and you're still not seeing any movement in the wait list, it may be worth it to think about another test date or location that does have openings. But my guess is that you'll get that spot. Yeah, people put in their test date and then they move all the time. We all are guilty for that, right, my retakers? Thank you guys so much. Thanks for the kind words there. Any tips on what to do? Yeah, stuck between 2 options. Generally speaking, you're between 2 options in cars, and one is okay. One is pretty close, it's in the passage or it's mostly right, and one is just a little more aligned. So remember that you're not looking for a totally wrong answer. It's okay, I got 2 decent answers. If I look at it, which one is better? I always, it's called the differentiate step in my strategy. We call it simplify, eliminate, differentiate, and select in my classes. And what I tell you is okay, you're choosing between A and C. The question stem is your color of your wall. And A and C are paint chips. So you're not saying which one is a better color. You're just seeing which one matches better. So if I'm trying to match this wood of my background, does A match better or does C match better? That's what you're doing with the remaining answer choices. A lot of students try to be which is the nicer color, which is the better answer objectively. It doesn't matter. What matters is, does it match the question stem? Does it match what we're looking for? So my guess is that you may not be rereading the question stem. So go back to there versus rereading the answer choices for the 3rd time. Yeah, great questions. Yeah, you can absolutely, yes, the first one I took, I got a 508. Which was decent, but I was I think I can do better. I didn't study the way I wanted to. My second one, I got a 520. I'll brag a little bit. I took practice exam 6, for real. I did it in test settings because it's been a minute since we've had a new exam from the AAMC. 526, felt really good about it. The hardest section was Psych-Soc. Full stop. It was kind of embarrassing, actually. I was maybe my endurance is off. Psych-Soc got hard, okay? So just be prepared for that. Not hard in the sense that you don't know the content. It was wordy. It felt like cars. I had to really think through the passages. There were whole passages where everything was passage-based in that section. So it was just super effortful. And I could see myself making silly mistakes due to the fatigue. So we all feel that. So again, guys, yeah, I teach this full time for a living and have done so for 8 years, I would hope, right? You are not trying to get to that level unless you want to come teach for me. Would love that. Love for you guys to do that for me. But you're just trying to get into med school and move on with your life, right? Not spend this as your full-time job. So just for context, right? Awesome, guys. Build confidence. Yes, so I recommend doing the standalones, not just for confidence, because it also helps you organize your timing. Because if you get the standalones out of the way, then you should just be on the 8-minute mark for each passage, and it's a lot easier to keep track. Plus, you can always go back to standalones. It's harder to go back to passage-based questions. Yeah. Good question. How do we know if we should reschedule your exam? Great question. I have rules for me and my students that we use. You can feel free to adopt them. The first is, have you seen your goal score in each section? Not the overall. I don't need to see the overall. It's hard to do. It's kind of like PRing in every stage of a triathlon, right? It's not likely that you're going to get the PR in every single stage, but have we seen our goal score in each section? So wherever your overall score is, divide that by 4, and that's what you should see in each section. So if you're hoping for a 126 or 127 in each section, but you've only ever seen a 123 in cars, what that tells me is we're hoping for a miracle on test day, and we do not want to hope for a miracle. Like, it's great, but we don't want to rely on that. So that's the first question. If you haven't, like in that situation, if a student is like, yeah, I've hit 127s in all the sciences, but I'm still low on cars, I recommend doing extra section tests in cars and really practicing that cars until it's up where we want it to be. So that might be one. Number 2 is, are you a retaker? If you're a retaker, then I would be more conscious of waiting till we see close to our goal score before taking it. If it's your first time taking it and you've done a really good job at studying and you want to see how you do and you're okay with retaking it, that's more up to you. The second thing is, have you done 300 hours of study? The MCAT, the AMC says that that's like the required amount. I would say that that's like the minimum. So have you done that? And have you done 6 full-length practice exams? Really like all the AMC practice exams. Because if not, you just haven't trained enough for the endurance. So if you've only taken 2 or 3 practice exams, if we haven't seen our goal score in 1 or more sections and we haven't hit 300 hours yet, and that's not possible by test day, then I would say, okay, then it's a good idea to move it. But if any of those 3, if we have those 3, and you're just nervous, yeah, you're going to be nervous, right? And that's not going to change whether we move our test date. You're never going to feel 100% ready, right? Like for a test like this, I don't feel 100% ready. So I would say the best thing to do is to check in. Do you feel like 80% ready? That's usually a good sign. Cool. The timeline to accomplish those 3 things depends on your schedule. I have students that study full time and get that done in 2.5 months. It's tight, they get it done. I have students that work full time and have children and can only put, like me, when I was doing my second take, I was working 60 to 80 hours a week. So it took me 11 months to get there. And I was patient about that. So it depends on your schedule and where you can put in that time and effort. Oh, but timeline to accomplish? Oh yeah, 10 days before. 10 days, because that's the last day to like decide to move your test date. Usually I have my students take our like go, no go decision maker practice exam 2 weeks before. Yeah. Great, I'm so glad. Continue to ask questions, guys. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, again, I would say like April 10th, if you are 10 points out, just so you know, about 15 hours of study on average, not like put 15 in and get 1 out, but about 15 hours of study usually translates to about 1 scaled point. So if you know you're going to get 150 hours of study between now and April, I wouldn't say you need to reschedule. I would maybe shoot, like if you're a little nervous, like maybe closer to 200 hours. But if there's no way to get 150 or 200 hours in by April, then yeah, I would consider moving your test date. Cool. Yeah, great question. My full-time work, I was a personal trainer out in San Francisco, and I was also coaching some athletic teams, which was tough because I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning to coach my athletic teams, training all day, and then usually going and coaching my athletic teams at night or doing coaching meetings. So I was lucky in the sense that I could organize my personal training schedule. So what I did is I created 2 3-hour blocks, 3.5 hours. One on Monday and one on Thursday. And then I had 1 weekend day, because usually the other weekend day was tournaments and races. So what I would do is I would have 3 hours twice a week, and then I'd have 1 weekend day. And realistically, I probably got about 5 to 6 hours. Most of those 3-hour blocks were not 6 hours, right? It was like 5-ish hours, which is reasonable. And I would break that up, and I would be very, very, very strict about that. So like, phone was on do not disturb. I left it at the gym and went to a coffee shop, did not talk to anybody during those 3 hours. So when I was studying, I was really in it. I had a very strict plan of like week over week, what do I need to work on? What is the biggest challenge area? Once a month, I would take a practice exam, and I would take Sundays off. So I would take a practice exam Saturday and review on Sunday. So I would do that once a month. And then the other weeks, I would do like a section test on Saturday so I could review it the same day, or I do like a big chunk of a bunch of different practice problems. For my full-time workers in my classes that have like more of a normal 9 to 5, I ask them to get up early and wake up in the morning and get a few hours done in the like 1 to 2 hours in the morning when you're less likely to be distracted by like life stuff and your brain isn't exhausted from work. So mornings are really, really powerful if you can make them work. Great questions. Great questions. Oh, good question. For studying in 3 days, I actually have a slide for this that'll pop up for you to peruse. So here's like the week before, but oh, let me see if I can get it over here. Oh, I had some questions ready to go just in case you guys wanted me to do them. So here's my week before schedule. So 3 days before, if today is the 3-day, like rest after this if you're on East Coast time, but cars practice, standalone practice is good. So like I like the independent questions in the AAMC, or just like some straight practice questions to work on some skills, and memorization. I really like memorizing the steps of aerobic respiration, electromagnetic spectrum, and your functional groups, and amino acids. Super huge. Tomorrow, memorization and key content review, no real practice problems. A lot of research has shown that like you want to review what you already know 2 days out versus learning anything new or trying any new strategies. You can do little cars here if you'd like. And then the day before, the best thing you can do is like recharge, rest, maybe review a couple of like your flashcards or memorization things, but really trying to keep it light. We call this tapering in the world of athletics, where you're lightening up your training so that you have the fullest of energies on your race day. It feels a little weird, so I would schedule like enjoyable things to do during the day before your test day if you can, like go get a massage, like get your nails done, go on a walk, go get boba tea, like do something really enjoyable out of the house. Maybe clean your room, that can feel really good, clean your study space, but trying not to do too much. Like the best thing you can do, honestly, between now and test day is like rest and build confidence by remembering what you know, trusting your process, believing in yourself. Mental stuff, mostly. Cool. Great. What's the easy way to start studying? Yeah, I would say the more time, if you're just starting and you have a huge full schedule, the more time you can study, the better, right? So go for the later of whatever test dates you prefer. You can always move it up. But I would start with still practice exams so that you know you've probably taken classes. So you know some basics, and CARS doesn't require any content knowledge. So we want to kind of see what your baseline is there. But once you take a practice exam, you'll have a lot more clarity about how certain topics are tested, what you definitely didn't remember at all. And then you just start chipping away at it and doing practice questions as soon as you have like the basic concept down for each topic. So I call it fingertip grip. As soon as you have a fingertip grip of the concepts, go right into practice problems so you can start testing yourself. That's my short TLDR of that. I have like a much longer version of how to build a study schedule. Good question. If you've put in the hours, you put in the work, but your score is not where you want it to be, then you're missing either strategy or application of content. So oftentimes that's learning the MCAT logic, that's figuring out kind of what you don't know. So this is a situation where maybe a couple coaching sessions could help. But what you're really looking for there is, why am I consistently getting questions wrong? So not just once in a while, I missed a magnetism question. It's okay, over and over, every time they show me this type of figure, I interpret it incorrectly. Over and over, every time they bring up molar mass conversions, I miscalculate. So look at your trends over all of that work, over all those practice exams, and look for things that you are consistently doing incorrectly and are doing it for 4 or more questions. 4 or more questions roughly translates to 1 scale point. So you may also be working a ton on little topics that are not heavily tested. And so instead, maybe focus on like, okay, what are the strategy and critical reasoning skills that are on this test no matter what, that I'm currently not doing, but I could work on and get better at. So looking for those trends over time. You have a lot of data from your practice exams and your practice work. So grab that and find those missing links and then work on those like laser focus. Great questions. Yeah, I mean, that's fine too, right? Like if you are like kind of burnt out and you just want to take it and see how it goes, that's totally fine. Just be prepared to like be a little overwhelmed, have a conversation with yourself about like, do I want to retake this if I'm not feeling like where I'm, like, again, we don't want to hope for a miracle on test day, right? It can happen, but we don't hope for it. So what can we do in the next week to feel more confident? Maybe we just need to trust your knowledge more and not overthink and just like go in and be like, I'm just here to show off my knowledge. And I know everything on this test. Fake it till you make it. It works. Maybe it's just a couple key little tweaks to be like, all right, I just need to focus more on the main idea and not go out of scope. And as long as I do that, I'm going to do better. So look at all your data and pick 1 to 3 things that you can work on in the next few days to build your confidence, because that will make the biggest difference versus like looking for little content that may or may not show up, right? Memorize your amino acids too, if you haven't already. That's a good one. Yeah, haven't studied. Depends, my retaker, if you take a practice exam and if you know that there are content gaps, I would fill those in just so that you're not missing key content areas that are like frustrating in practice. If you know that there's something you never learned for retake, I would prioritize that earlier rather than later. But yes, I would start with like 30% of your time should definitely be on practice problems at least, maybe even 50-50. But again, if it's been a while, there may be things that it is worth spending an hour or 2 brushing up on, reviewing your notes, watching a couple of videos, so that you don't get frustrated and give up on a practice set just because you don't know the content. Great questions. Yeah, fingertip grip, that's what we do. Are Altius full lengths good representative? Good question. I haven't used them in a little bit because we now have 7 AAMCs and that's where most of my students go. They're expensive is the main reason I don't recommend them, because I'm like, I don't want to make you guys spend more money than you have to. They're pretty good. They've done a better job with their data. Back when I used them, when they first came out, they're in Utah too, so like I feel like I should represent. I'm in Salt Lake City right now and I'm like, maybe I should represent that. But the issue I used to have is that their data was really hard to understand. Like it would be an Excel spreadsheet to get your data from your exam and it was messy and weird looking. Now they've cleaned it up. So allegedly it's like much cleaner and easier to use. Some students really like it. They have video explanations and things like that. The issue with any test prep company, I'm not gonna like name any specific names, but what I've seen, we do a lot of data analysis. I have a full-time data analyst on my team and all we do is like take practice exam data from our students and correlate it to their real scores and all this stuff. We do lots of fun stuff on the back end. And one of the things we noticed is the variance for test prep companies that are not the MCAT, the AMC, compared to students' real scores were like all over the place. Like the scatter plot was like, pew, 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 pew. So some students did way better on Altius than their real exam. Some students did way worse on Altius than their real exam. And it was really hard to correlate any kind of trend. The same is true with any other test prep company we have looked at. So now I've really kind of gotten bullish about like, in terms of test making decisions, we want to take the AAMC exams, particularly exam 4, 5, and 6. Like those are going to be your decision makers. We want to take those close to the end of your prep. And that's where we're really kind of being predictive. Not that we can really predict the real score, but being more predictive. I have a hard time being predictive with other test prep because I have some students who clearly perform better on like Blueprint. And then when they get to AAMC, they perform worse. And then I have some students where that opposite is true. So for an individual, like if you were to show me all of your data, I might be able to be like, yes, it's representative for you, but it's just not consistent. That was probably a longer answer than you needed, but like I'm really into the data back end and we spend so much time with it. And it's just like a little messy. Yeah, great questions. Yeah, whoa, good questions, kind of both back to back, right? Like improve the strategy aspect of the test. A lot of the strategy that comes into this exam is that it's simpler than you think. That's it. Meaning, if you are really confused, if you're trying to do high level stuff, there was probably a simpler way to answer this question. So a huge part of this exam is reading these complex passages, reading these chunky question stems, cutting through the noise and being like, what are they actually asking? Like I'll do a practice question and it's like this complex knockout mice experiment. They've got all this stuff going on and all they were really asking is, what is the enzyme for DNA replication? DNA polymerase, right? But it's framed in this very messy, research-oriented way. So a lot of the strategy is the mental mindset of, let me think about the simplest way to answer this question. What is the most basic content I know about this? Let's start there. We can always go up in complexity, but sometimes we miss the obvious answer by trying to assume that it's more difficult than it is. The difficulty of this exam is its volume, is its length, is the reading requirement, is the breadth of different topics. Each individual question, with rare exceptions, is pretty straightforward. And that's the thing to remember. So looking for the most straightforward answer is going to help a lot with strategy. Looking for the core idea of each passage and leaning on that for your answers is going to help a lot. So that's a big, big thing. The other piece, understand what your question is asking you. Most of the students' wrong answers, once you know the content, is that you're choosing an answer that's correct, that's factual, that's in the passage, but it's not answering the question. It's not answering the question being asked. It's like me being like, where are you from? And you being like, oh, it's midnight. And it's like, okay, it's midnight, but that's not answering where I'm from. That's a true statement. It's midnight, but it's not answering the question of where are you from. So just make sure you're not just picking a right answer. For those of you that worked really hard on the SAT or ACT or GRE, this is hard because those tests are a lot about like, there's just right answers and wrong answers. The MCAT, they level it up. All 4 answers can be factually correct, but only 1 is answering the question. So I hope that helps. That's like my real baseline strategy. And then all my other strategies kind of riff off of that, of thinking simple. And you'll notice that in my YouTube videos, right? There's definitely more complexity to everything I teach on YouTube, but I intentionally don't go there because it's not what you need to be effective on this test. In fact, again, that fingertip grip is really all we need for most of the questions. I'm not going to say all of them. There's always like 2 to 3, maybe 5 annoyingly difficult questions in each section. We don't need those. Most people are going to get those wrong anyway. Cool. Awesome, guys. Yeah. So for each section, if you want to go through each section, for Chem Phys, my biggest strategy is highlight every number you see and don't do more than you need to. There's always more to be done in Chem Phys questions. Like there's more math you can do. There's more reasoning. There's like more steps. Keep it to 1 step. Keep it simple, keep it clean, and really know your unit conversions and your metric units. Like know what a micromolar is versus a millimolar. So really, really being good about that, because what that does, there's probably like 10 to 12 questions that require math, scientific notation, that kind of thing. But if you can rock and roll through those, you have the brain power, energy, and time for all the other more complex questions. Second is CARS. CARS, it's all about the author tone. The reason they have the CARS section is for you to be able to identify bias, to be able to identify underlying opinions and agendas in writing. So many of the questions, those inference questions, are all asking that. What can be inferred? What's assumed? What's not stated, but is what the author's actually trying to say? So be critical. Be critical and curious. That's my strategy for CARS. Go in and be like, yes, tell me more about Aristotle and why you hate him, right? Like get in there, be judgy, be like, author, you didn't support your claim. You left a hanging claim. You didn't tell me that this was true, so I don't believe you, right? Be critical and be curious and engage with the text. It's going to be a lot more fun and interesting than just like reading about the Dead Sea Scrolls and hoping for the best. For biochem, it's always scarier than it looks, especially the more recent exams. The data looks scary. The question stems look scary. There's so many acronyms. It's scarier than it looks. They're testing you on basics, right? They are not expecting you to be an expert in ELISA techniques, all right? So trust the basics, lean on those, even if you're not sure where you're going, start with the basics. And then in Psych Soc, it's a fatigue game. It's a fatigue game. It's so easy to make silly mistakes. It's so easy to just like, oh, I just want to get this test over with. So remember that Psych Soc is worth just as much as every other section. Lean into it. Like fight the fatigue, force yourself to be more strategic. I write the most notes. I annotate the most in the Psych Soc section because it helps keep me focused. Otherwise I'm like missing keywords and like not wanting to go back to the passage because it's annoying. So I force myself to take a ton of notes. I take more notes than even the CARS section in Psych Soc to force me to pay attention and listen to the passage. So I hope that was helpful. That was a little bit of like a quick like short and sweet version of all of the strategies. I could go into more, but I will tell you, here's the other hint, and this is like maybe blowing up my own spot here a little bit. It almost doesn't matter which strategy you use on these sections as long as you have a strategy and it's consistent. Like there are certain things that I recommend more than others, of course, but the most important thing is you have a plan. Even if that plan is not optimal, it's better than having no plan, because having no plan is going to be stressful, incredibly fatiguing on your brain, and not efficient. So just have a plan, have a strategy, and commit to it like it's the Bible. And as long as you do that, that's way better than not having a strategy at all. So don't look for perfection with your strategy, look for commitment. So hope those were helpful tips. It depends on how many total exams that you're going to take. I would take all the AAMCs. So if you have more exams that you want to take beyond the AAMCs and you have those times, I don't recommend more than one a week, personally, because it takes that much time to review and get better. And your goal is to like improve those practice exams. So if you have like 2 extra weeks after doing all your AAMCs, then do those blueprints. You can also use the blueprints for section tests. Like if there's one section test that section that you're struggling with way more than others, you could do like a midweek section test by using the blueprint exams, or do like a section each day. I've used that with students who need to work on full-length strategy. Yeah, great. Awesome, guys. Any other questions here? We got time, so hit me. I don't recommend retaking them to review. I think the point of review, in my opinion, this is getting into like Brem method, personal, how I teach the MCAT. So like if you've heard differently and it works for you, please use whatever works. But for me, the point of review is to determine what you need to work on in the upcoming study sessions. So it's not really about like doing it perfect again. Or like doing it like and being like, oh yeah, I remember the answer is C. It's really about learning where you went wrong, either in your content or your logic. So I really recommend doing the review as a review and going through. And what I teach my students to do is you're not doing content review when you're reviewing this. So if you get to a question and you're like, ooh, I did not remember Dalton's law at all, and I just had to guess. Cool, write that down, learn Dalton's law, and then move on. You're not learning Dalton's law in that moment. You're not looking up my YouTube video on it, right? Like, don't do that in that moment, because your job in the moment of review is to figure out the total sum of everything that you want to work on in the upcoming week. So when you're reviewing your exams, you're looking for like, oh wow, in Chem Phys, I got 8 questions wrong because I just overthought the question. So I really need to have a strategy this week of not overthinking. Or I got 3 questions wrong in cars because I brought in outside information. So I need to make sure in my upcoming strategy work in cars that I'm keeping to the passage, right? So that's the point of review, is to gather that information in aggregate, look at all the questions you got wrong and why, and determine, okay, I got this 1 question wrong because I forgot about torque, but I got 6 questions wrong because I didn't know my amino acids. So what's more worth my time? Amino acids, because that's going to give me more bang for my buck. So that's the point of review, in my opinion. It's not to get the questions right. It's to learn what you can really reinforce to get the questions right on similar exams next time. I hope that helps. Cool. Great questions. Yeah, chemistry. Chemistry is all about rules. All right, chemistry, especially general chemistry. If we're talking Gen Chem, I don't know if we are, but if we're talking Gen Chem is all about rules. It's the most foundational chemistry. It's the oldest chemistry, and there are core rules. What are some core rules? There are rules like full octet. Atoms like to have 8 electrons in their valence shell, which means that they are going to behave in certain ways to get a full octet. Acids donate protons. Bases accept protons, right? Like these basic rules are what general chemistry is rooted in. You need to have 100% confidence in those basic rules. Negative delta G means a spontaneous reaction. Spontaneous means no energy requirement. If I see something that says spontaneous, it's a negative delta G, right? That kind of level of, yes, 100%, I trust it, I believe it. And it's like the core foundational rule behind each topic. That and math, those are the 2 things. Math comes up the most in Gen Chem. Lots of molar mass calculations, right? Lots of calculations with pH and pKa and stuff. So that math skills is the second piece. For organic chemistry, all about your structures. In fact, I just want you to know, guys, I did a crazy thing because I was redesigning my lessons for my course. So this is a little bit of a tangent, but I went through all of the recent AAMC materials, Exam 5, Exam 6, and Section Bank 2. Which all have been released in the last 3 years. I went through, and what I was looking for were questions that required content knowledge about the steps of organic reactions, like intermediates, mechanisms, reagents, stuff like that. Guess how many I found out of 2 exams and the whole section bank about content-related questions on specific organic reactions? 1. I found 1 question out of all of that. Yeah, so reaction mechanisms, don't worry about it, all right? You need to know the names. You need to know the names of reactions, like you need to know that there is such a thing as substitution and what that means, but you don't need to memorize the steps, all right? You don't need to be able to draw out the intermediates, all right? What you do need to know, what was tested over and over and over again, like I didn't even bother counting after a while, was functional groups. Names of structures, right? What is a benzene ring? What is a pyrimidine? What is a secondary amine, right? All of those, that's what's tested. So organic is all about structures and the rules of how structures form, right? So like what makes something a double bond versus a single bond. Cool. I have a playlist of all the videos in OChem that I have filmed. Yeah, I haven't filmed a ton of OChem recently, but I filmed some like hot topics. By the way, if you guys are curious, I filmed some hot topics on things that like Khan Academy doesn't have, or I haven't found a good video. Like there are other YouTubers that do such a wonderful job and I don't want to like rain on their parade or like steal their thunder. So I try to fill in gaps because I'm a newer YouTuber in this space. I've been trying my hardest to like fill in gaps that I've seen in this space where there aren't a lot of videos on. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I've kind of gotten to the end of that list. So yeah, if there's any requests, I am filming next week for 2026. So just let me know. Cool. Again, I would know SN1 and SN2, like their basic features, right? Like what makes them interesting and unique. But I will tell you, there was a lot of SN1 and SN2 questions on exam 1 and 2, but not on 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So I don't know, I can't predict the future. Maybe they'll go back to that. But I would say like the more important thing for Orgo is to really deeply understand your structures and then add in like, again, a fingertip grip worth of understanding of each reaction type, right? But you don't need to be able to draw it. It's a multiple choice test. Cool. Thank you. I don't have a cheat sheet. I'm kind of against cheat sheets, which some of you guys know. Part of that's because I want you to make your own. I want you to make your own about the things that you need to remember. The stuff that you already know doesn't need to go on there. What I will say is, again, a lot of my videos focus on those core rules, especially in general chemistry. And what I would challenge you to be like is like, okay, I'm in the world of thermodynamics. If I was to pick 1 to 3 core rules of thermodynamics, what would those be? Right? So ask yourself that question as if you were a teacher, and I bet you'll find the answer. So if you were like, okay, where would I start? What is the most foundational thing? That's where I discover all this stuff. So it's you know, how do I teach you guys? Cool. Awesome. Any other questions here, guys? Oh yeah, 1 exam every other week. Yeah, 1 exam every other week is great. And then you can always take like section tests on the off weeks if you wanted. Yeah. Yeah, every other week is good. Sometimes what I have students do is take like 2 or 3 weeks off early in their prep to really focus on key skills and then do weekly as they get closer. So it kind of depends on what you need. If you want to evenly divide them, that's totally fine. Not a strong preference there. All right, guys, I got enough time for like 2 more questions, then I got some stuff for you. All right. So 2 or 3 more questions. Happy to answer. Yeah, reviewing is annoying, isn't it? Yeah, is it taking you a while to review the UWorld questions or doing your content review or both? Because yeah, reviewing your questions like is the skill. It is the skill of studying for an exam like this. So I'm gonna assume that you're asking about reviewing questions. Yeah. Okay, so with question review, just like I said for exam review, your goal with question review is to discover the gaps in what we call your mental models, right? So if you have a vision, let's just do an example together if you guys don't mind. Are you guys cool to do a practice question? Would that be okay? And we can like do this in like show rather than tell? Because I do have a couple. Okay, let's do it. I got 1 yes, so that's enough for me. All right, so let me go ahead and pull this up. we'll see if we can get to 2. All right. So, see, you guys can see that hopefully. We'll do this redox question. This was like, I pulled this up because it also is like a beautiful way of talking about some like shortcuts, mental shortcuts on the exam. So this one is actually a Chem Biz question, which is interesting given its topic, right? If the ETC, aka electron transport chain, is a spontaneous process, which of the following must be true about redox reactions within each of the 4 complexes? So go ahead, everyone, please. I'll give you a minute. Pick your answer. I'll answer that points question in a second, but I want to give you guys a chance to pop in your answers here. And I would like you to rate your confidence. So my crew has already answered. What % confidence are you in your answer? Would you be able to bet your medical school admission on it? % confidence is always a fun one to do. All right. Not be 100%. That's good. That's also a good place to start. All right, if you're still working on it, we're going to work through it together because it's, again, more of an example question. But yeah, if the electron transport chain is a spontaneous process, what must be true? So always with strategy stuff, there's information in this question stem, and there's hints and strategy right in here. Oh, let me grab my pen and see if I can move this over. See if you guys can see it. My little pen thing moved it over. Okay, great. So we have spontaneous. What is spontaneous all about, guys? When you see the word spontaneous from a strategy perspective and a content perspective, what are we thinking? Yeah. Really good. Yeah, delta G is negative, right? And also, we're in the world of like thermo. We're in the world of thermo, right? That's the other kind of information we're provided. So our Gibbs free energy is negative if we're a spontaneous process. Whenever you see the word spontaneous, I want that to ping in your brain, little mental shortcut. Oh, we're in thermo, we're talking about delta G. All right. Which of the 4 complexes, or which of the following must be true about redox reactions within each of the 4 complexes? So this is like one of these things absolutely has to be true, and the other 3 are not true. Right? Not true. So that's a key word there. I would highlight must if this was me on test day. Okay, so how do we go through this process? We are going to eliminate things that are absolutely untrue. So a lot of you guys said like B is out, and you are absolutely correct because we know if it's spontaneous, the delta G is positive. Now they didn't have to tell you this, by the way, the ETC being a spontaneous process, like that is something you should know for test day if we were in biochem. All right, so B is gone. And then none of you guys picked D. Why didn't we pick D? Why didn't we pick D? What about D is wrong? I guess, what is the word that we looked at? Just to keep it simple for the chat. What is the word we looked at here to make D wrong? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, but yes, guys, good. The word faster indicates kinetics. This is talking about general chemistry rules, foundational rules to follow. Thermodynamics and kinetics are separate topics. kinetics of an experiment or a reaction does not affect the thermodynamics, and vice versa. If you add an enzyme into a system, it does not change the spontaneity. It does not change the delta H. It does not change the delta S. So anytime you see things like faster or kinetic or rate, but you're in a thermo question, that is out of scope. It does not matter whether they're faster or not, because we're talking about thermo. Cool? So that is what I mean by core reminders or core concepts, right? It's like, okay, here's a foundational rule that I can use to quickly eliminate things that are not in the scope of this question. Cool? All right, so now you guys were deciding between A and C. All right, and here, nope, rate doesn't affect thermo because rate is all about the initial step, right? First step to the intermediate, the transition state. Thermodynamics is always initial to final. So it doesn't matter whether there's like a big hump or a little hump or a huge hump at the transition state. If we are starting and ending at the same place, it's the thermo is the same, right? So kinetics is all about this initial step. Thermodynamics is just where we end up. The way I always talk about this, I think I have it in a video. I'm a skier. So if you're on a mountain, I have friends that do this crazy thing called backcountry where they like ski up and then ski down. I'm not into that. I'm into the chairlift. But if me and my friend both go to the mountain and she skis up like with her legs and I take the chairlift up, we both end up in the same place. Our thermodynamics are the same, but the kinetics are really different. There was a big transition state difference that we had. So that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah, this will be posted afterwards as well. Yeah. Okay, so now between A and C, here's my mental shortcut that I wanted to show you for this question. Electron carrying molecules in the electron transport chain have E0 values, right? Like voltage values of greater than that of oxygen. Or, right, so that's kind of like, because remind me, where is oxygen on the electron transport chain? At the beginning or the end? A little teeny bit of content. Where is oxygen? It's at the end, right? So what this is saying is that these electron carrying molecules before oxygen have greater E values than oxygen, right? So the end has a lower E value. C is saying that the E0 values are increasing as we go, all right? So does anyone know what E tells us about the reaction? Right? Is the reaction more or less likely to happen if we have a higher E cell? If we have a higher E0, E cell, is the reaction more or less likely to happen? Trying to give you guys binaries. If we have a higher E cell, is the reaction more or less likely to happen, or is this a question mark? Feel free to put a question mark if you don't know the answer. Yeah, it's more likely. E cells or E0s, it's called the redox potential, right? The electrochemical potential. What it really means is it's the potential for this reaction to happen. The bigger, more positive number for the potential, the more likely that reaction is to happen. Yeah, and E0 is just saying, here's the potential, like as in voltage. Here's the potential for this redox reaction to happen, for these electrons to be exchanged. The reason it's in voltage is because like technically it's flow of electrons, which is kind of like a circuit physicsy thing. But what we're saying essentially is like, is it likely for those electrons to move, to undergo redox? We only use this term for redox. The not, by the way, it just means physiological conditions. So they're just saying like, hey, this is happening in normal physiology conditions. Any kind of not or prime. Not prime is physiological. E not here just means like baseline electrochemical cell potential. It's just like a terminology thing. So what this is saying, A is saying that the oxygen is less likely to receive the electrons than the electron carriers here, right? Because what we're saying is the E0's going down once we hit oxygen, relatively speaking. C is saying that oxygen is more likely to get the electrons. What do you guys think is happening in the electron transport chain? More likely, oxygen being more likely or less likely to have electrons? Yeah, what does oxygen want more than anything? Electrons, right? It's the final electron acceptor. It's like, please, anything. Electrons, right? So it wants electrons more than anything, which means its potential to get reduced, its potential to gain those electrons must be the highest, which means it has to go up as we go down the electron transport chain to allow for that to happen. So C is our answer. And for my people that pick C, I want you to figure out why you weren't 100%. All right? You need to be 100% confident in that. You knew this. Trust it, right? That's part of the review processes as well. If you got a question right that you were really uncertain about, I want you to be like, okay, how can I be more confident in that moving forward? All right. But here's the mental shortcut here. See how A and C are saying opposite things? A is saying that the E values get smaller as they go, and C is saying that they get bigger as they go. As a test taking hint, as long as they're in the right category, right? Like they're talking about thermodynamics and it's like in scope, one of those two answers is correct. So even if we weren't sure about B and D, A or C is correct. If you have opposite answers that are in scope of the passage or the question, one of those two is correct. It's a good mental trick. Don't second guess. No, a lot of that comes from thinking that this is harder than it is. All right, think you're smart. You are smart. You wouldn't be here if you weren't like into learning and being smart and loving science. Trust your knowledge. You got this. And you're more likely, statistically speaking, as long as you've read the question correctly and you like didn't misread anything, you are more likely to be correct the first time, right? Versus switching your answer. Statistically speaking, that's just true. That's why like when on game shows, you're just supposed to go with door number 2, not switch your answer. So statistically speaking, you're more likely to be right your first choice. So stick with that. My rule with my students is you have to bet your medical school admission on changing your answer. If you picked C and you're like, ooh, but maybe it's A, unless you want to bet your medical school admission that A is right, you stick with C. You stick with C. And then that way, even if you are wrong in practice, you'll know why you made that choice and you'll be able to correct it. Cool. E0 is telling you that the values of E0 tell you how likely that system is to be reduced, to undergo a redox reaction. So the bigger E0 values mean it's more likely to gain electrons. Meaning as we progress down the electron transport chain, we want to increase in E0 values because we want to get more and more likely to gain those electrons, to keep those electrons moving down the chain. If we had a smaller E0, then complex 4 wouldn't even want those electrons and they would just stay with complex 1 or 3. So it's kind of like a direct relationship. The bigger, more positive the E0, the more likely that reaction is to happen, the more spontaneous that reaction is, all kind of in that same direction. Cool. I do have a class and course, and that's what we're going to spend the rest of this session talking about. If you guys have other questions, now is also a great time to just throw them in because I'll pop in there. I do have AMC product questions. Yes, electrons don't increase, right? We have the same number of electrons bouncing down the chain like a slinky, right? We don't like multiply the slinky, but they're more likely, like basically each complex wants those electrons more than the previous one. Right? It's like, no, I want it. No, I want it. It's like a white elephant. I'm trying to give lots of analogies. It's like a white elephant where like the really good gift just keeps getting passed around, right? So having the E0s just means we're more likely to get the electrons, not that more electrons exist, just to be clear. Yes, I do have things. Let me just pop the screen. I have things for you. I did this in the last YouTube Live, but just in case you need it, here's what I use the AMC resources for. You don't have to use all of it, but feel free to take a screenshot here. I'll move myself so you guys can see it. I don't know if you can take a screenshot on YouTube Live though. I don't know. You guys will get the idea though. I use them as like performance sets, meaning that you're doing them under timed conditions, you're doing bigger chunks, and you're doing all of your practice before you start reviewing with review mode off. For the QPACs, like 3 passages in each subject area with like 5-minute breaks to mimic a third of an exam. For the section banks, I like doing 4 passages because there's 12 total passages. So you can get through a whole section bank in 3 sessions, like maybe 3 weeks if you do this once a week, if you do 4 passages in the set of standalones. So I like doing this as kind of like mini test workouts. So the 3 passages at a time is about a fourth of a test. The 4 passages at a time are like between a third and a half of a test. So it gives you kind of a sense of your rhythm and your strategy as you practice. You can also use the QPACs as section tests. Those are great practice as well. And then there's a couple other sets here. There's the official guide questions. That's like a half test. There's 30 questions in each section. So that's really great to do like a half test as you prepare for exams. And then the independent question pack, that's something I would do like the 3 days before, like the week before, because it's just standalone questions that are great content review. Cool. So I do have these. You can use it however you want, but I usually do like AAMC performance days, and they take 2 to 3 hours, and then I spend the afternoon reviewing, is what I would recommend. Cool. All right, continue to ask questions in the chat. I want to hear them. I have thoughts about Anki. I don't want to like offend anyone who loves Anki. I'm just not a flashcard person. All right, so I'll just be honest. I am not a flashcard person myself. I never used them effectively in school. Every time I tried to, I just like couldn't. There are a lot of people that really swear by Anki. I do have, I did a lot of research on how flashcards can be effective for learning. There's some like learning science studies out there. And so I put together a YouTube video on the best practices for flashcards in general. Anki specifically use spaced repetition, which is great, but only if you use it frequently. My main thing, my TLDR, is that I really don't like pre-made decks because the whole benefit of flashcards is writing your own understanding on a card and then learning it in the way that works best for you. So other people's like language and how they write it, I get nervous about because it's not how you would learn it. So you're not only trying to learn the content, but also learn how somebody else would learn the content. Which is tough. It's like learning a language, but then also learning someone's like tone of voice and trying to do that. The other thing is that none of these Anki decks are vetted. I don't know if they're accurate. I don't know if they're helpful. Like, I don't know if they're aligned to like the MCAT favorite topics or things like that, or even what you need to be reviewing. So I get very nervous about students using Anki decks, especially pre-made ones, as their main content review. I know a lot of people swear by it on Reddit and things like that, but I would use it as supplemental versus pure, like the only source of truth, just because it's not vetted, right? So personal things. Yeah. So yeah, totally. This is recorded, it'll be posted after this as well. Cool. So let's go ahead. For those of you that are interested in the course, I do have a discount code for you for joining me this lovely evening, and I'll just go a little bit through the program. Even if you're not interested in taking the course, I would recommend staying because a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are like how to study. So even if you don't end up coming in studying with me, my hope is that you'll kind of see like the rhythm to which we study as we go. So what are my 3 pillars? This is like the Brem method. Like if you're ever wondering, like I'm on this girl's YouTube, but I don't know even what the Brem method is. This is the Brem method. It's a theory of studying for academic tests. And actually, honestly, this is very heavily borrowed from when I used to be an athletic coach. So it's really like how you prepare for any performance, where you need to learn the material. So if you're a musician, right, learn the piece, but for the MCAT, learn the content. And we call this on our courses, we call it content modeling, which is just more active. We're not trying to memorize. We're not trying to sit there and just study. We are trying to build models of the content that we can actively use in our practice. So a lot of our language in the course is, okay, you don't understand this. You need to build a mental model. You need to have an understanding of what this topic is and why it behaves the way it does. Or, oh, you got this question wrong. Was it in your mental model? Or did you have a gap in your mental model, right? Which is a lot more active than just like, I need to study. I focus a lot on MCAT favorites, not high yield. I don't like that word because like low yield stuff can come up, but like things that consistently the MCAT test that tend to be the most points, and the key foundations of each topic. We use lots of study tools. I like got super when I started this process, and I still do. I just have read most of the research now. I got super into learning styles and study tips and volume-based learning strategies that have been written about. I read all the books. I have like a whole bookshelf on learning strategies. And so a lot of the modeling we do is based on really cool research by very, very smart education science people. Testing mastery is the stuff we've talked about today, like the strategy, the application. What are you doing for timing? What are you doing for elimination? How are you annotating? How are you highlighting? What are you doing during your breaks? And how are you maximizing those breaks? What are you doing the day before the test? All of these things are compounded into testing mastery. We spend a ton of time on that in the course. And then the last thing, this is the thing that made me leave my previous test prep company so that I could do this part, is mental fitness. You can have all the skills and strategies, You can have all the content in the world, but if you don't believe in yourself, if you second guess, if you have low confidence, if you have high anxiety, test day is not going to go the way you want it to. So a lot of what we do in the course, I worked closely with a good colleague and friend of mine who's a cognitive behavioral therapist. And we built and designed exercises and programs and videos to help you build that mental fitness to handle things like burnout, anxiety, overwhelm, all of the stress that comes with taking this exam. Because honestly, like, I'm surprised more people don't talk about it, because that is such a huge reason why people are successful, is being able to manage the mental side of preparing for this exam, let alone taking it. So that's our philosophy. And we have, and I'll answer this question because sort of is my answer. And I forgot to answer. If you want to wait to schedule your exam, I would schedule it when you are 4 to 5 points from your goal score, and schedule it a month out. If you are in a very busy area for MCAT, you may not get your ideal spot, so it may be worth it to schedule when you think you're going to get to that point. If you're in a busy area like California or New York or Chicago. Sorry, I forgot to answer that previous question. So our philosophy, we believe in whole human focused coaching. Like, we're all humans. You're a human. We're not going to expect you to be an MCAT robot. We're not going to get mad at you if you're sick or if you're behind. All right, that's not our jam here. We are going to hold you accountable, but we're going to be supportive about it. You're going to get some personalization supported by structure. So it is a course. There is homework that you are required to do, but there's also in each class, there's optional work that you can choose to do based on your challenge areas. You get to meet with a coach one-on-one to talk about your study plan. So we try to give that personalization feel while still giving you the accountability and structure of a course. It's also community-centered learning. I only take 25 students a cohort, and the intent there is to keep it very friendly. Cameras are on. We just started winter cohort, and it's like great seeing all the faces. We're in a Slack channel together that's going to ramp up. We get to know you, right? That's the vision. We want students who learn to love doing the hard things, not let themselves be held back because they're afraid of physics, right? We want to lean into that, do those hard things. We want you to be excited to understand yourself, not just like for the MCAT, but as an academic learner, so that when you go to medical school, you'll just rock it. My favorite thing, other than hearing students get into medical school, is when they message me and they're like, hey, I just finished my first round of courses. I just finished my first round of classes or finals, and it was easy. And like, I had such a fun time. I was able to do all this other work because like the studying wasn't so bad because I learned it all for MCAT. So that's my dream, is to get you prepared where you can just like rock medical school and be awesome at it, and feel confident walking into any test day that you are having. All right. What's the difference compared to other prep options? It's more personalized. Again, I've worked for other test prep companies. The live online experience, I didn't know any of my students because I wasn't really in a position to be allowed to. So we're trying to be more personalized while still getting a structured course experience. You have a dedicated coach to help you keep you on track. We give progress reports every week. You don't have to, but you're encouraged to meet with that coach every single week for 15 minutes for a check-in. Make sure you're staying on track. We do have those trainings, like I said, on confidence, anxiety, and stress. Single, highly qualified instructor, so there's always a lead instructor of the class to kind of guide you through this process. And then a variety of tools and perspectives for different learning styles. So we do try to give you a buffet of options versus just saying like, this has to work for you or else, because not everything works for everybody. So here's the spring details. It's late April to July test dates are great. If you need this positive, supportive community and accountability, do you want all the resources to be organized and provided to you? Do you like learning in a small group environment? And do you struggle with those mental fitness things like anxiety, burnout, overwhelm? And do you need help making these content connections? Because a lot of the classwork, it's content and strategy, but a lot of the work is like summarizing, simplifying, finding the truth through the noise. Here are the cohort dates. I'll pop this up for a second and check the chat. So yeah. Oh, thanks, Samira. It's great to see you, by the way, in here. Feel free to reach out on community channel. Tell me how you're doing. So great. Yeah, so we have a foundations course, which I'll talk about in a second. We have a 6-week primer for the course that's on content and CARs. So if you need support on your content review, and you feel like you need that accountability and need a class, we do have a cohort starting for foundation. It's called Foundation Series, and it starts end of January. So if you know yourself and you're like, I really need that accountability to go to class and some guidance on that content review, then we highly recommend it. If you don't, if you're like, I can self-study, and that's totally fine, you'll still get the learning objectives for that foundation series after signing up for the course so that you can go through and make sure that you're prepared for class. We have like a list of learning objectives we want you to feel comfortable with before you start. We don't want this to be the very start of your journey because I do have a baseline expectation of your knowledge coming into the course. And again, you can come to that foundations course if you like, or you can just follow along in self-study with our resources that we provide beforehand. Again, cohort 1 starts March 2nd, which is already coming up, which is wild. I'll be teaching that one Monday and Wednesdays, 3:30 to 6:30 Eastern. I'll have my assistant coaches, Paula and Milland, with me. Cohort 2 will run 2 weeks later, March 17th to the 23rd on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We try to pick a time for my full-time workers, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. Dr. Maeve, who is one of our, she's an alumni that is now a graduated doctor, which is so cool. So she'll be teaching that cohort along with our amazing lead instructor, Callista, who's been with us for 2.5 years now, which has been amazing. Their assistant coaches will be senior coaches, Marquez and Olivia. So we've got a great team of spring cohort. We've just redesigned the course as of fall 2025. So it's all updated with the most recent practice exam that was put out and all the information from the 2025 test takers. Cool. Yeah, spots tend to fill, it kind of depends on the cohort. Our fall cohort did fill up a month in advance. Both cohorts did. Our winter cohort, because it came right after fall, we still had spots in one of the cohorts 2 weeks out. We do have an early enrollment right now. So like financially, if you think you're going to sign up, that would be great. If you know you need to wait, and you're worried about a spot, feel free to reach out to me at amanda@bremethod.com, and we can hold a spot for you if you're like waiting on a test score or something like that. But the early enrollment does end at the end of the month. Yeah. Yeah. And we do have payment plans as well, just to let you know for that. We try to work with that. So what's included, just so you have all the logistics, we have 30 plus hours of live online classes, about 35% content and 65% strategy, because that's the MCAT's breakdown as well. You also have access to 20 plus hours of optional live online group reviews that are run by our coaches. So you'll get a chance to go to any and all of them. They're all recorded and provided to you if you can attend live, as are the courses. So if you're like, oh, I can't make one of these classes, no big deal. We record everything. We know you're busy. We expect you to attend live if you can, but we know that that's not always a reality for pre-med. So we record everything, and those recordings are yours for as long as you need them. You'll have access to them the day after the session runs. I also have filmed 8 bonus video modules on different MCAT skills that I think are really important, like critical reasoning and atoms and molecules. So those are all available for you, along with my video reviews of the homework assignments that we provide through UWorld. So we have UWorld, it's provided to you automatically. You don't have to pay for it. In fact, we have to purchase it on your behalf. It's 6 months of UWorld. And we have the learning platform side where we can give you specific assignments. I've curated every assignment to be as AAMC as possible. And I have video reviews on all of that required assignment that you can watch. And it's kind of like a little bit of what we did today, where it's me going through the passages and the questions and the logic as well. So those are all things that you get access to signing up for the course. We also have a Slack channel. That's where we chat. That's where we talk. That's where you communicate. So Amir, message me in the community channel. Let me know how you're doing. And then you also get your dedicated assistant coach that you meet with regularly, personalized progress reports. And again, all of those recordings and resources are available as long as you need. Cool. What do you get immediately when you enroll? Like if you enroll tonight, here's what you get immediately. You'll get access to your UWorld subscription. It usually takes us like 1 or 2 business days to get them to send you the code. You'll get access to my content guides. These are my content resources to help you organize your content review mental modeling phase. You'll immediately get access to our class platform, which has our pre-programmed modules on MCAT basics and study skills. If you want, you have access to 2 add-ons. So we do have a small discount code for the AAMC materials. If you don't already have them, you don't need to purchase them if you have them already. In fact, that's why we don't lump it into the cost. We know a lot of students come in as retakers. And then if you do want the foundations course, that's an add-on that you'll get access to immediately as well. Expected of you. This is important before you sign up. This is important to know. Minimum of 15 hours a week. All right. So that's between the 2 live classes of 6 hours. And then we expect about 9 hours of work outside of class. For our full-time workers, they usually make it work. We fit it in around different times, but as much as possible, trying to clean up your schedule so that you can really focus. The more time you give us, basically the more we can help you. So really trying to have as much time to commit to this course as possible and not just trying to stuff it on top of an already full schedule. We expect that you attend the live sessions when you can and engage with your instructors and peers. A 10 to 15-minute weekly check-in with your coach to make sure you're staying on track. Completing your class assignments on time. You have a week to complete each assignment set, and communicate any challenges with us. So if you know that you're falling behind, if things are stressful, if you've gotten sick, we just want to know so we can help you. The class itself, this is kind of like the week, all right? You schedule a 15-minute one-on-one check-in with your coach. Then you watch the pre-class. We have a pre-class video and a pre-class quiz before each lesson. And then you'll review some basic concepts. So our very first class is physics. What we say is, okay, watch a quick video, do a pre-class quiz to assess where you're at with the basics, and then review any concepts that are rusty. So if we didn't remember whether or not something will sink or float at a certain density, we maybe want to review that. So anything that comes up in the quiz, we want to review. Then you're going to do the 3-hour live online class, going through all of the topics on that class area. Again, class 1 is physics, so it'll be all of physics. Again, not exhaustive, but all the key concepts we want you to know. After class, you're going to review where were you challenged versus where were you feeling really good in class. Complete your UWorld homework set, review that, and watch the review video. Then you'll attend any group review sessions you want. We have different topics every single week. This week, for example, in winter, we have physics units, CARS vocabulary and author tone, and how to use flashcards. So we have a whole bunch of different topics on both skills, strategies, and content. You'll complete your mental fitness workout for the week, and then you'll do the same thing for class 2. So do your pre-class quiz, pre-class video. So again, notice that there's a lot of touch points. And this is what I want to mention, even if you're not coming to join me in the class. When you're studying physics, I don't want you to study physics one day a week, right? Like, oh, I'm going to study physics on Monday. It's best to study a little bit frequently. Like if you're going to do physics that week, do a little bit of physics on multiple days. Spaced repetition is the theory behind this. What it says is the more touch points, the better. And so we design our course to have as many touch points as possible, as opposed to like, okay, all you're doing this week is just physics on Monday and CARS on Thursday. You have integrated lessons to help you return to physics, return to CARS week over week and day over day. So that's what I recommend for your self-study as well. Little chunks frequently versus big chunks once in a while. What can you do before the course begins? Take that full-length practice exam, all right? It's in the pre-program module as well. You can complete 2 to 3 bonus modules that you have access to in the course. Maybe start self-studying some rusty content and complete maybe 500 to 100 UWorld questions per topic just to get a baseline. Also, reading some CARS and doing some nonfiction. If you're interested in the foundation series, again, this is new as of fall 2025. This will be our 3rd iteration, which is like going really great. Students have been loving it. We have an 18-session need to know MCAT essentials and CAR skills. These are all the things that I wrote down that I want students to know coming into the course. So it's like, okay, what would I expect the content level knowledge to be coming into like real full MCAT prep? So this is the list plus lots of CARs because you can never get enough CARs. The start date for the spring foundations is January 23rd. Is when we'll do a kickoff and ends on March 5th, right before the cohort 1. It's every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's 1.5 sessions, so 7:30 to 9. You'll have optional UWorld homework assignments as well for there that you can choose to do if you like doing practice problems as part of your content review. All the sessions are taught by our Bread Method coaches. They're wonderful. The course is bundled now with the foundation or with the spring course. But if you just wanted to do foundations, you're like, I'm not ready for the full course anytime soon, or I just need foundations help, it's $500 as a separate fee. You can enroll bundled into it on our website. And what I would say is the students who should take foundations, if you know you need to review a lot of content, like you feel like really shaky with your foundational content, you know CARS is a big issue and you know accountability is a big issue, right? Because a lot of it is just being able to show up to class and you like learning in a live class environment. If you feel confident in your content or you know you can self-study, you don't need foundations. We still will give you the optional UWorld assignments and we'll give you the learning objectives. All right, so we want this to be valuable for you, not like a requirement. All right, so payment options. Of course, payment's important, so we're gonna talk about that. Spring is currently in early enrollment, so the full package with the foundation series is $24.50. There is a monthly payment plan available. $2,100 for just the spring cohort. It bumps up to $2,250 starting after early enrollment ends at the end of the month. And then we have the $500 for the foundation series only. So it's a little discount if you bundle it together and you know you're gonna do both. Right now you have a discount code. This will be good till Friday. So feel free, because we do these for each YouTube live, so it's good to know where you guys came from. So YouTube 150 for an additional 150 off. Through 1/9, it will apply to the payment plans as well. And if you need that discount code for the AMC bundle, it'll be available after purchase. If you are on the fee assistance program, we do offer scholarships. Just reach out directly to me, and we can set you up with that if you qualify. Great. Yep, the foundations sessions are all recorded as well, and you'll have access to that for as long as you need. Yep, so we record every single session. We love it if you can attend Foundations Live, because then you can ask your questions about content. But again, we know you're busy, so those are all recorded and they're all posted, and you'll have access, along with the slides and things like that. Great. Great questions. Yes. Oh, payment work. So yeah, unfortunately with UWorld, here's the deal with UWorld. We have to purchase it through the course, because in order to give you access to our homework assignments on the learning platform side, it has to be an account we purchased. They won't let us put in homework assignments on private accounts and look at it, because technically it's not ours, so we shouldn't be able to see your data. If you have a UWorld and you want to join the course, one thing you can do is you can email support@uworld.com and basically say, hey, I'm signing up for the BREM Method course. They're giving me 6 months of UWorld. Can I get a refund on my private account? And depending on how much you've used of that private account, they may give you a prorated refund. So that's what we recommend for students, is to reach out to UWorld and see if they'll refund you if you're planning on attending the course, because unfortunately we do have to buy a fresh account for you in order for you to have access to all the homework. It's one of the annoying things, but it's worth it, because then I get to give you specific homework that are all based on the work we're doing in class. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Any other questions? I'm here. I'm hanging out. But if it's past our due date time, so I try to be good about that in the classes as well. So feel free to head out. I know it's late for a lot of us that are on the East Coast. If you want to hang out and ask me more questions, I'll hang out for a bit. Otherwise, I hope this is helpful. Hope you like the AMA, and please feel free to comment in my YouTube channel about any additional videos you want to see. And good luck for my January test takers. You guys are going to do great. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Let us know how it goes. I'm always really curious. All right, my email is amanda@bremmethod.com. Even if we've never talked before, I would love for my January test takers, tell me how it is. I don't care about what the content is. Tell me how you felt, right? Tell me about the experience. I'm very curious to see how 2026 goes. So let me know, or let me know if you're challenged by anything. We're always happy to help. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna put my email in just so we have it. I'm gonna head out in just a minute. Yeah, the foundation one. So we built this, if you're curious, I built this in the fall of 2025 because a lot of students did say, they were like, Amanda, the course was great, but I felt a little like I was playing catch up. I wish I had had some time to really get my foundations down, like my base content, my base CARS skills. And so rather than make you do that on your own, we decided to build a course around it. So yeah, it's all content-based sciences and then CARS every single week. So because CARS is one of those things that needs a lot of practice. So for example, one of the first sessions is cell biology. What are eukaryotic cells? What are prokaryotic cells? The organelles, things like that. We also have 2 sessions on math skills, a session on data reasoning in the sciences, and a session on research design and psych-social. So we do have some basic skill work as well, so that you're really prepared for the work we're doing in class. But again, we have those learning objectives, so a lot of students feel comfortable self-studying that material. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm really glad. I didn't know how great of a community I would have when I started posting 2 years ago, so I'm so glad that they've been helpful. No problem. And there's more details on my website as well. Great. All right, guys, I think I'm complete on questions. If you're like typing, plop it in right now. Otherwise, we'll log off for tonight. But thank you all so much for staying, for hanging out with me, and we'll see each other next time. We'll be back in February. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. I love teaching you guys. Let me tell you, so much better than the SAT. So thank you guys so much. Continue to reach out. And for those that are continuing to study, we'll see each other in February for the next YouTube Live. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.